Russian President Vladimir Putin has suggested that he would consider using nuclear weapons if confronted by NATO and Ukraine. If a war were to spread to a nearby country like Estonia or Poland, a US-Russia confrontation would take place with a clear danger of nuclear confrontation. You could certainly make the argument that we are currently closer to nuclear war than at any point in history since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. So what would a nuclear conflict look like? Would it be true global Armageddon? Or could we survive? Scientists have already investigated these questions, but their work is surprisingly unknown. Who wants to think about a nuclear radiation death during peacetime? But the fact is, we're no longer in peacetime, and the shadows of mushroom clouds loom over our planet once again. The latest investigation of the Russian military estimates that as of 2022, Russia has a stockpile of 4,500 nuclear warheads. The US holds an inventory of 5,500, but only 3,800 of those are available immediately. To put that into perspective, it's estimated that 3 million megatons of TNT was detonated during the entirety of World War II. One nuclear warhead today carries the equivalent of 4 megatons of TNT. So in other words, one warhead can cause more damage than took place during the entirety of World War II. That's crazy. In 1945, the US attacked the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki with atomic bombs, which gave us 2 real-world examples of the effects of nuclear weapons. Over 200,000 people died in the 2 cities instantaneously or within the first 5 months due to radiation. Anyone caught within 1 kilometer of the initial blast was instantly reduced to bone, as all the flesh on their body was vaporized by the intense heat. The longer-term effects of radiation have been intensely studied as well, and they include increased levels of leukemia and other cancers. However, experiencing the bombing was not actually an automatic death sentence. Among the 100,000 or so survivors, the excess rates of cancer over the subsequent years were under 1,000 cases, and that's actually a lot lower than I would have expected. Hiroshima and Nagasaki show that long-term radiation will actually be the least of our problems following a nuclear war. Social collapse and famine will be a far, far bigger concern. Before the Ukraine war, it seemed pretty unlikely that the world's superpowers would confront each other again, so scientists began studying the impact of smaller nuclear conflicts. A recent study looked at the impact of a nuclear exchange of 100 Hiroshima-sized bombs, which are actually relatively small by modern standards, and they were hypothetically detonated over the most populated areas of India and Pakistan. Each explosion was estimated to incinerate an area of 13 square kilometers. Direct human deaths would be in the tens of millions. The effect on the planet would also be severe, with soot from the explosion reaching the stratosphere and blocking the incoming sun rays, dropping the Earth's surface temperature by nearly 2 degrees Celsius within the first 5 years. Rainfall patterns would also be drastically altered, with the total precipitation dropping by 8%. As a result of this, food exports would plummet with the lack of rain and heat. The researchers of this study concluded that a regional conflict using less than 1% of the worldwide nuclear arsenal would have consequences unmatched by anything else in human history. A 2014 study of the same scenario found that the soot entering the stratosphere would cause severe damage to the Earth's ozone layer, increasing UV penetration by 50%. If a global famine could result from just 100 nuclear explosions, what could be the result of several thousand? One 2008 study looked at a Russia-US nuclear war scenario where Russia would target 2,200 weapons on Western countries and the US would respond with 1,100 weapons on China and Russia each. In total, 4,400 nuclear warheads would explode. And in this full-scale nuclear war, it was estimated that 770 million people would die immediately. A later study in 2019 looked at the atmospheric implications of the same war scenario and estimated that only 30% of sunlight would reach the Earth's surface due to the enormous amount of soot created from the explosions. A massive drop in temperature would follow, with the weather staying well below freezing throughout the entire summer. In Iowa, for example, the model showed temperatures staying well below freezing for 730 days straight, which means there would be no growing season. And the reality is, this wouldn't be a blip on the radar either. Temperatures would still drop below freezing in the summer for several years after the initial explosions. It would take over 10 years to reach a normal climate again, and by that time, most of the Earth's population would be long dead. The world's food production would crash by more than 90%, causing global famine that would kill billions by starvation. In most countries, less than a quarter of the population would be alive by the end of year 2, and the people who did survive the initial blast and somehow found a way to feed themselves, they would be forced to eke out a living on a cold, lonely planet.